She looked me right in the eye, and she said it like it was nothing. "Oh, you're the service worker?" I was standing in my son's living room, holding a gift, smiling. She had just walked in, pearls around her neck, chin in the air. My son's new mother-in-law. She looked at my hands, looked at my clothes, and decided in 3 seconds who I was. I didn't say a word. I just smiled, because I already knew something she didn't, something that would change everything the moment she finally found out. What did I know? I'll tell you, but first, if you believe that quiet dignity always wins in the end, hit like and subscribe. This channel is built for people who know that the best response is patience. What they didn't know was I had spent 30 years as a family law attorney. Not a loud one, not a famous one, but a good one. I worked the hard cases, the ones that broke people, divorces that dragged on for years, settlements where everything, the house, the children, the future, hung on a single signature. My name wasn't in the newspapers, it was in the documents. And her name? I had seen it before. Not that day, not at that party, but in a file, years ago. A bitter divorce, a woman who wanted everything, a settlement that in the end didn't go her way. My firm had represented the other side. I had drafted the final agreement. I had watched her attorney sign it with a defeated hand. She walked away with less than she expected, much less. Did she remember that case? Maybe not. Did she remember the attorney on the other side? Clearly not. But here's what was strange that afternoon. The way she spoke to me, the way she never asked my name, like I simply didn't matter. I filed that feeling away, right next to her name. My son pulled me aside later that evening. He was embarrassed. I could see it in his jaw, tight, apologetic. "Dad, she doesn't mean anything by it. She's just like that." Just like that. I nodded. I hugged him. I told him it was fine. But when I drove home that night, I sat in my driveway for a long time. Not because I was angry. I was past anger. I was remembering. I remembered being 32 years old, new suit, second-hand briefcase, walking into a courtroom where everyone assumed I didn't belong. I remembered fighting for people who had no one else. I remembered what it cost. The late nights, the missed birthdays, the slow, quiet sacrifice of building something real. 30 years. To be seen as nothing in 3 seconds. That's not just rudeness, that's erasure. And something settled in me. Not rage, not a plan, just a quiet, cold clarity. I would not correct her that day. I would not correct her the next day either. I would simply watch. Because people who judge quickly tend to reveal themselves just as fast, and she had already shown me exactly who she was. Now, I just had to wait for life to remind her who I was. Weeks passed. My son and his wife settled into their new life. Family dinners, holidays, small gatherings. She was always there, always at the head of the table, always performing. She told stories about her real estate portfolio, her connections, the people she knew. She talked to me like I was staff. Politely, pleasantly, but always from above. And I let her. I asked small questions. I listened carefully. I remembered everything. Then, one evening, her daughter, my son's wife, mentioned the family was having financial trouble. Nothing serious, she said, but her mother had some old legal matters, unresolved property questions from years back. I nodded slowly, because I already knew. I had made a quiet call to my old firm 2 weeks earlier, just to refresh my memory on an old case. Nothing unusual about that. Attorneys review old files all the time. What I found confirmed what I already suspected. There was an unresolved clause in her divorce settlement, a small piece of property, still in dispute, legally complex, the kind of thing that could go very badly or very well, depending on who was handling it. Was it a coincidence she needed legal help now? Maybe, but I had stopped believing in coincidences a long time ago. If the story is hitting close to home, subscribe right now. Every week we share true stories of patience, dignity, and quiet justice. You don't want to miss what comes next. Her daughter asked me one Sunday afternoon, quietly, privately, if I knew any good attorneys. Her mother's property dispute was getting worse. The other party had hired someone aggressive. What kind of attorney is she looking for? Family law, property, someone really experienced. I looked at my coffee cup for a moment. I might know someone, I said. 2 days later, her mother called. Her voice was different, softer, almost careful. She asked if I could recommend legal help. I said yes, I'd be happy to look at the case. You're an attorney? Retired partner, I said. 30 years, family law. She didn't speak for a moment. I heard it, the silence of a person recalculating everything. But I wasn't finished yet. The biggest piece was still coming. I reviewed her file, and there it was. Her divorce settlement, the one from years ago, had a clause that had never been properly executed. It concerned a small commercial property. The opposing party, her ex-husband's side, had failed to file correctly, which meant the property was still legally hers. She had walked away thinking she lost it. She hadn't. All these years she had something and didn't know it. I made the calls, I filed the motion, I handled it quietly and completely. And then, at the next family dinner, her daughter pulled her aside. She came back to the table with her eyes red, not from sadness, from shock. She looked at me from across the table, and for the first time she really looked at me, not at my hands, not at my clothes, at me. She started to speak, stopped, started again. The attorney on your old case, I said gently, the one who drafted your settlement 30 years ago. She put her hand over her mouth. That was you. That was me. The room was quiet. She had spent 30 years angry at that outcome, and the man she had dismissed as a service worker, he was the one who had just given her back what she thought she lost. Life has a sense of humor, a very patient one. She called me the following week. She apologized, fully, without excuses. I accepted it, not because I needed the apology, but because I believe people deserve the chance to grow. She didn't lose everything. She gained something, a piece of property, yes, but more than that, a lesson about assumptions, about the danger of looking at a person and deciding their worth before they've spoken. My son thanked me privately. He held my arm and said nothing for a moment. That silence meant more than any words. I don't tell this story for satisfaction. I tell it because quiet people carry entire worlds inside them. And the ones who dismiss others the fastest, they are usually the ones who understand people the least. Arrogance is always temporary. Dignity is permanent. She learned that. I hope she kept the lesson. She called me a service worker. She wasn't entirely wrong. For 30 years, I served people on their worst days of their lives. I showed up. I did the work. I carried their pain quietly and professionally. Service is not a small thing. It never was. The lesson I want to leave you with is simple. Never mistake silence for weakness, and never mistake a title for a person's worth. The most powerful people in any room are often the ones saying the least. Here's what I want to ask you today. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever stayed quiet when someone dismissed you and let time do the talking? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story moved you, please like this video. It helps more people find these stories. Subscribe if you believe in quiet strength, earned dignity, and justice that doesn't need an audience. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it with them. Because sometimes the best gift you can give someone is a story that reminds them of who they truly are.